This is the RogueHead Huddle with Gooch and Keys, presented by RGR Football with our special guest, the Mod Father. This is your boy Gooch.
That's Keys. That bearded, beautiful man over there, that's the Mod Father, the world renowned.
All right, Gooch.
Leader of the Mod Squad. Get it? Mod Father, Mod Squad. Anyway, we appreciate all y'all for checking out this content, whether religiously or in passing. Check out the RGR store. Subscribe to the channel. Join the three of us in Discord. Check out Chief in the North. Let's take this walk after Chiefs win. I feel my petty kicking in.
Yes.
Oh.
Let's just get right to it. Thoughts on the win versus the Raiders?
You don't want to
It's
start.
about time. It's about time is all I can say. I started watching it with my neighbors that are Raiders fans. Liz decided to make a bet with them on who would have to fly the other flag. So she planted our flag right in the front of their yard.
Yeah, buddy. I love it.
Yeah, this was I wasn't expecting to have a win like this, and so it feels really good. And though I know that we've had a game in between when they took their victory lap, and so I really don't think that has anything to do with it. But Andy really did seem to have some pent up anger that he just let out in this game. And maybe it was because this is the first convincing win that they've had all season. Whatever the case is, Andy always takes his foot off the gas. But we were up and we were doing fake punts. We were doing all this stuff and we were keeping our foot on the gas. And so whatever the reason is, I just hope that Andy gets a thrill out of it, that he continues to do this when we have a lead.
Oh, you're waiting on me, aren't you? First things first, I promised another podcaster that I would show a little love. So congrats, Dan Sorensen, on your one big play this year. And you should consider yourself lucky that you even got to see the football field, because if I was your coach, you'd be water boy. But I digress. I promised some love for Dirty Dan, so here it is. Good play. Juan probably wouldn't have caught the interception, as Keys pointed out at the beginning of this conversation. So there you go. Now,
I thought you were going to say
waterboarded. Aside from all that, I still don't think Hitchens should be in the middle. I think that's really my biggest complaint. Aside from the fact that I still don't think we ran enough, and yes, the screens were sort of like the running plays, but there's going to be some defenses that's going to blow those up. I did like seeing Patrick under center a lot more. I loved Orlando Brown being able to hold back the rush. That's all the petty I got. It was a good win. I'll take it. I mean, aside from Mike Hughes' fumble, which may or may not have been a fumble, just word of advice, Mike. You're that close to out of bounds, just run out of bounds, bro. There's no need to lower that shoulder to try and take that hit. Just get out. That's all I got. Look, shortest thoughts on a win in a minute.
He's more bitter when we lose, so he's got a lot more to say.
I got plenty to say. You didn't play enough Frank Gore. I didn't see Josh Gordon. I know he was out there for 20-plus snaps. Why the heck sign him if you're not going to throw him the dadgum ball? It was good to see Pringle catch a touchdown pass. It was good to see. I mean, I didn't see Frank Clark. I'll leave that to Dan Harms. He's a Frank Clark lover. But it was good to see Jerron Reed get some push and Jones make life uncomfortable. And the secondary was playing tough. without Treverius Ward.
And the naughty
Um,
dance.
Yeah, naughty dance. Yeah. Okay, now I'm done bickering. See, Keys, you always get me started.
What did I say? You forgot.
Uh,
You forgot Daryl's catch too. That touchdown.
bailing
On the
Mahomes out.
ill-advised throw. The
Probably one
ill-advised
of the,
throw when he had Pringle right wide open to his right, and I do mean wide, 3 steps on the nearest defender with a clear path to the end zone. See, I was trying not to bring that up. I was trying to be happy. He did Moss Abrams, though, and the most disrespectful celebration with the "you too little." Okay, I got a kick out of that.
I don't know if you saw the graphics, but somebody on Twitter posted Abrams' numbers. He's basically their Sorensen. Like when defenses target Abrams, it's basically the same success rate as when the quarterback targets Sorensen. So, of course, that might
Almost. The
have
problem is that Sorensen was perfect. 158.3 when you targeted him.
right. Well, until he stole the, yeah, I guess it depends on your definition of target, right? Because Sorensen caught basically a fair catch. That sucker was hanging up there, and there were about 5 Chiefs running towards it, and it just happened to be he and Thornhill who were right there. So,
The
oh
problem
yeah,
is those kind of fair catches are the ones that usually get dropped. So because everybody's trying to run to it.
yeah,
So
right. That was
why the hell am I
that
still
was
talking?
that was one of those where Carr should have said 500 before he threw it, right?
Yeah.
You guys ever play that? Yeah. So I don't think it matters who came down with it. Like, I'll just take the time so we can be real about this. All that matters is that we got an interception. Like, it's a team thing. I understand there is a real crowd of people, and the way that Spags has been this year, it's a legitimate concern. Like, I don't think that people really hate that Sorensen got an interception, and maybe not even really mad that he stole it from Thornhill. I think there's a legitimate concern from people that this is going to get Dan more playing time and coverage, which he shouldn't be in. And so, um, like I said, I liked how Spags. I used the word wasted in the live stream, but basically, um, yeah, how he used Sorensen and Neiman as blitzers. So you have an offensive lineman who's preoccupied with blocking both of them, and guess what happens? It leaves someone who's better open, so they can get the pressure. So I don't mind them being used that way, but and I don't even mind Hitchens being the third linebacker. I have no problem with Gay and Bolton and Hitchens if it means that Neiman's not on the field. But otherwise, other than those instances where he was blitzing Sorensen and Neiman and basically causing the offense to waste blockers, I don't really want Neiman on the field. And I see that as an Iowa fan, and Neiman and Hitchens are both Iowa grads. So, imagine that, Gooch. That'd be like you saying something bad about one of your Alabama boys.
Which I never would. Roll Tide.
I do want to go back to the Hughes incident, though. I do
Go
think
ahead,
he
buddy.
had it in the ground, caused it, but even with him fumbling once, I would much rather see him out there on kick and punt returns. He's got a backup role. Hardman doesn't need to do that, and they need to get him concentrated. And like I've heard Keith say quite a bit, they need to get with him on in the off season and or in the middle of the week and start working on their timing. He can be
Right.
solid. But yeah, Hughes has the best vision out of any returner I think we have. And he goes. He doesn't try to run backwards or anything. So yeah,
That's
that
true.
would be
He
my
just
pick
goes.
for returner.
Yeah,
Also,
I was
but
just gonna
Keith.
say I like Hughes and I like Pringle, but I don't think Pringle, has the juice that I've seen from Hughes. I mean, he somehow finds a hole and he hits it, and so I think that's a huge reason um, why I like Hughes. But yeah, I mean, you don't like to see the fumble, and but at the same time, I mean, some of those hits, there's just some plays that you have to tip your cap to the guy that made the play, and he just put his helmet right there perfectly. So
Which by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is different because I said this exact same statement when Pringle took that perfect hit on his fumble a few games back, and Keys basically like ran me over with the Keys locomotive about how terrible special teams was because of it. So now he's coming full circle. I just want to point out that Pringle was a return specialist at K State, and he's been focused more on route running. So maybe why you don't see the juice that you used to see, but Pringle does that. But he's getting away from it like Tyreek did. I get it. Also, I'm really hard on the Chiefs when they lose, so now I'm going to do some defensive defending of them for all the pundits that are like, oh, but it's just the Raiders. Everybody forgets that just a few years ago, Derek Carr was an MVP candidate until
a
he
few
broke
weeks
his
ago,
leg.
yeah.
No, a few years ago. I'm sorry, a few
Okay,
years ago, he was leading the MVP voting until he broke his ankle. Then he had to go through all the stuff he's gone through with different coordinators like Alex Smith. Then he had to deal with his coach getting fired. Then his wide receiver in a tragic accident, and he's had to hold that team together. Just because they're the Raiders don't mean Derek Carr isn't any good. And for all intents and purposes, even with the pressure, we weren't really on Carr. They found out the perfect spot for Leatherwood is guard. I mean, it's a pro football team, and the ball bounces funny. So even though it's the Raiders and we did smoke them, I mean, you gotta give them some credit. They've been holding their team together, and they still are above 500. And it could
right. It's
easily
still
be us in last place and them in first. All it takes is a different kind of bounce.
that's still the same team that beat the Ravens, right?
Yeah,
They did beat the
yeah.
Ravens, didn't they? So I mean, it's yeah. Um,
And
so
and hey, Andy,
since
I didn't drive around the Death Star, but we flew around it a couple times, buddy, in your honor.
well, since you were talking about me coming full circle, I'm going to point out that early on when Pringle fumbled and you defended him, and here you just said that Hughes should have ran out of bounds instead of taking that same hit. So
Nah,
it's
yeah,
nice to see that you've come full circle as well.
yeah. You're not supposed to have the same memory as me. We don't go back. That's the past, there, Keys. Let's move along.
Yeah, I think the point is that you both tip your cap to the uh, the opponent that made the play, but you also learn from it, and maybe next time you go out of bounds. And so, yeah, I mean, they're really. I think we could talk about our thoughts on this win for a long time because there was a lot of positives. There was a lot of good things to see from it. Pat was looking good. The offensive line, for the most part, was looking good. Wiley, whether he was holding every play as Raiders fans were crying or not, whether that's true or not, I mean, listen, the Raiders were holding basically every play as well. And that happens to the Chiefs' defensive line most games anyway. And we just don't really talk about it because we'd rather complain about Frank Clark and Jerron Reed and because the reality is most other defenders have to fight off that too. The best defenders still have to fight off of holes. Most of them
A
are
very a very wise man in the Chiefs organization told me there's holding on every play. The refs could call it on every play. So just got to fight through it.
But I'm with you on Gore. Frank Gore, Al Gore, whatever Gore, Derek Gore. You know, I would have liked to seen some more plays.
What is his name?
Derek.
It's Derek. Okay. Sorry, Derek.
Would have liked to seen more.
He's sorry too,
him,
Derek.
So.
Sorry, the dog got excited.
Yeah, I don't mind the Blake Bell quarterback sneak. You know, I hate the 4th and inches or whatever when we're handing the ball off out of shotgun to a running back that's 5 to 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Like, to me, that defeats the whole purpose. So, you know, for me, most of the time, I want to see 4th and inches, 4th and 1. I want to see a QB sneak or, you know, the quick little fullback handoff or you know, whatever. And so I don't mind that play. I didn't want Blake Bell on this team, but he's on this team, so you know, I don't mind that. If I had my way, I guess we'd bring back Jason Dunn and we'd let him do that quarterback sneak. And no, the one thing you didn't mention.
For those of you that don't know, Jason Dunn follows Keys on Twitter, so we had to get that shameless plug in there.
I didn't know that.
Hey, I will say though, no, I mean we've talked about this before though. Jason Dunn was like the best blocking tight end we ever had on our roster that I can remember. So, you know, he doesn't watch these videos, so you know it's not like but for real, like, you know, and we've had the argument about whether blocking tight ends, you know, have a place in the NFL today or not. But still, I mean, you know, if I have to have one of those guys on this team, I'd probably take Jason Dunn, however old he is right now, over Blake Bell. So, but the one thing we didn't get to, we didn't even mention Melvin Ingram. Like, this dude looks so jacked. Like, I think the first play I saw him on, I saw the 4, and I'm like, at first I thought, oh, good play by Bolton. And then it was like, no, it's Melvin Ingram. Right? And like, I think I called him like a slender, like he's got a deceptive, he looks kind of slender, but he's also like jacked at the same time. And so like, I'm just like, I'm having fun with the 4s, whether it's 24 or 54, those two guys out there. So just got to see him on the field more. What do you think? Do we need to see him on the field more? Am I crazy in this?
See Ingram on the field more?
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of,
baby.
I think it's a matter of him getting the defense down, but yeah, I am all for it. I'd rather see him out there than Clark.
Yeah,
I think he's got a lot of push. He's still got a lot of juice left. He wants one more contract. And as Ryan has said repeatedly, contract years are undefeated. And he wants to prove that the Steelers made a mistake, the Chargers made a mistake. He looks good. I mean, even with old Handgun Frank out there, him, Jones, wonder if we're going to have to edit that out. Him, Jones, Reed, and Ingram. Then what do you call it? Platoon a little naughty in there and Saunders. It could be an ugly defensive front.
Yeah, that's kind of segueing us into our next topic, which is playing time for the young guys. How do you guys feel about that? What are you wanting? What are you wanting to see as far as playing time? Do you care?
It's a matter of earning it. I mean, I'm all for the young guys being out there and learning from their mistakes over the guys that have been doing it for years and making mistakes. Still,
right.
Like, yeah, Hitchens needs to get out of the middle, the mic. He needs to be on the side. Bolton needs to be in the middle. He flashed unbelievably against Henry, and it's exactly what I called for then. Was get him one-on-one with Henry. I want to see what happens, and I didn't expect to have it happen all game, but Derrick
So
Henry
much
kept
so
getting
that
up,
Henry
shaking
has
his
to take
head.
the year off.
I'm still
Yep,
giving Bolton credit for that.
he wore him down.
Bolton hit him so hard he had to take the year off. I'm done. My foot hurts. Far be it to me, I would never normally root for a Missouri guy over an Alabama guy,
Hey
but
now,
I mean it was kind of amazing. I'm just saying.
Right.
And you know how I feel about that. I think Juan and Watts and Thornhill, Snead, bring back Bo Keith, hashtag bring back Bo Pete Keys. Bolton Gay and Dorian O'Daniel at the linebacker position. Let's go ahead and get Felony Frank on home. Save us $20 million against the cap that way. We're going to have to edit that probably, huh? Get some of that cap space because you know Mahomes isn't going to play for that 10-year, $500 million or whatever it is. They're going to have to restructure that bad boy. So you might as well start making some cap space now because it ain't going to be none on his next contract. Kendo, you can get rid of Frank. Kendo's there. Saunders is still young. Noddy is still young. Jones is still young and still the second best defensive tackle in the league. Surround them with Dorian O'Daniel, Gay, and Bolton. Bolton can work the middle. Gay and Dorian O'Daniel can run to the sidelines and in coverage. Then you've got Snead. I would get rid of Ward. I just don't like Ward. But Snead, Hughes, Fenton, Baker, Watts, Thornhill, and Matthew. Maybe not Matthew. Either way, get the young guys in. I figure you want the young guys in anyway because we've all said it, Father Time's undefeated. Eventually, you're going to lose a step. Eventually, Tyreek's 4-2 is going to be 4-4 before anybody knows it. I mean, Legion of Zoom will become the Legion of Very Fast, and it'll just happen in a blink. So you might as well let the guys with the energy, the young legs, the current speed out there, let them make mistakes. That's how you build a team. I mean, look at Belichick. He never really had any. I mean, can we name outside of Hightower, Ty Law? I mean, did he really have any real big names on his defense? He just found players that would work. I guess you could count Chandler Jones maybe and Vince Wilfork, but he did it mostly with young guys. Why not us? Speed, you can't teach speed. And if they can fly all over the field, I mean, and I'm not even gonna look at Dirty Dan. Hitchens got burnt. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he wasn't Dirty Dan wasn't even out there, and Hitchens got burnt because he's not a coverage guy, or maybe he was when we got him, but he doesn't have the foot speed. You know what I'm saying? Just can't keep up with those guys. Once they get even with them, they're gone. What is that? What is that saying? If I'm even, I'm leaving. That's people running against Hitchens. So, I mean, no Dirty Dan slander. I'm done. What you guys think?
nope, that wouldn't be the case with DOD. They wouldn't be running away from him. And I say
Right.
put him out there.
Right.
I'd much rather see him over Neiman. You can't tell me Neiman covers better than he does.
Yeah, and we're filming this Wednesday, but one of the things that came out of today's press conference, interviews, whatever, is I believe Andy was I believe it was Andy was talking about Bolton, and I believe it was, and said something about he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And when I hear a coach say that, the first thing that pops in my head is, then you have to play him. You have to play him so he can make those mistakes the first time, so that, I mean, if you're saying that you don't get the opportunities in practice to make some of these mistakes, you have to make them in a game. And so when you acknowledge that, to me, like, you have to play him. Now, I don't know, whatever reason DOD hasn't seen the field except for, a few games, like, he spied Lamar Jackson like almost flawlessly a couple years ago. They used him as a spy in that game. And they've used him as a spy, I believe, in another game. And he did get, I think he might have got some snaps at the end of this last game. And if you're not blowing guys out, if you're blowing other teams out, if we have games like this every week moving forward, then you can play these guys the last 8 minutes of the game and slowly ease them in. But if not, as long as they're not just like completely and utterly lost, then their athleticism makes up for some of their lack of knowledge. And so for me, I would rather see them make the mistakes on the field if that's the case. Now, if they don't know the playbook, and if they're that bad, then they shouldn't be on the roster to begin with. We should have players who know the playbook and who can be trusted at least halfway decently instead of them. So, like, you can't have it both ways. And even if you say some of those guys are Taub's guys, okay, well, still, you can't have it, both ways. You can't have your linebacker depth and your secondary depth completely depleted because your special teams coach wants these guys on his special teams to the detriment of your actual offense or defense. So, this really isn't much of an argument on the offensive side because, Gray's played some. We'd like to see him play more. Derek Gore isn't actually a young guy. I think he's like 26. And, we'd still like to see him play a little bit more. But Andy came out and basically started 3 rookies on his offensive line right off the bat. So I don't know how much more, we can expect out of the offense, but defensively, whether we're talking, and again, DOD's kind of in that same area as Gore, because I think he might be around the same age or maybe a year or so younger than Neiman. But with players like DOD and Watts, I think that there's a point where we would like to see them fail ourselves. Because whether other people admit it or not, Spags and his coaching staff have failed the players before. They've failed the team before. They've failed the fans before. I don't care what their Super Bowl rings are. And you know what? Nobody cared about how many rings Bill Belichick had, because after Brady left, people started questioning him and coaching him and trashing him like crazy. And he has a way, way, way longer and way more extreme pedigree than Steve Spagnuolo has ever had. But that didn't stop people from questioning Belichick. So if Belichick is not above reproach and can be questioned, why the hell can't Steve Spagnuolo be questioned? Because we've seen multiple things time and time again. And we might not know all the details. People might be right on that. But the reality is that we still know that people like Sorensen weren't working from the beginning of the season. We didn't have to see 6 or 8 weeks of that. We saw that from the beginning. We've seen that Neiman's not working. We saw that Chris Jones did not look effective on the outside. So if you can experiment with Chris Jones on the outside, then why can't you experiment with giving DOD a package, giving Watts a package?
No argument here.
Nope.
Well said, my friend.
All right, well, let's go to something more positive here. Which player has most pleasantly surprised this season?
I debated on one that you already said. So I'm going to go a different way and go with Trey Smith. Did I steal yours, Gooch? That was a big smile.
No, I was actually just gonna say Trey Smith doesn't surprise me because I know what kind of beast he was at Tennessee. He just got unlucky with the medicals. I'll be honest, Bolton surprises me. Like he's in the SEC. Obviously, I watched them play Alabama or highlights of them or whatever. And I knew he had great straight line speed for what he did. I mean, he had a nose for the football. Like it always seemed like, even when he was running around rushers, he always ended up somewhere around the football. But I really didn't see. I didn't see him worth a second round pick when we took him. There was a couple other people which I think I did in a huddle that I would have chosen over Bolton. But I'm pleasantly surprised. The guy just finds the football. I mean, it's one of those things you just can't teach, like speed. Like some people just have a knack for it. I wouldn't call him Ray Lewis, but Ray Lewis had a knack for the football. Ed Reed had a knack for finding the football. Those guys were just instincts. Ed Reed wasn't the fastest safety. He just managed to always know where the football was going and be around it. You can make a Hall of Fame career out of that. And to your point about Bolton doesn't make the same mistake twice, when head coaches say that, they don't say that about a lot of players. So when you hear one coach say, that guy doesn't make the same mistake twice, like that should be, like you said, Keys, like the ultimate green light. Put this kid in the game. Like you just, I think you probably hear that once every few years from a coach. That guy just doesn't make the same mistake twice. You know what I'm saying? If you have that kind of uncanny ability, you don't have to be the greatest. I'm going to sigh. Oh, sweet Jesus. Record this because this will be the only time I say this. I'm going to agree with Danilo on one thing. If the brains are there, if you can process fast enough and be a split second faster on your thought process than the other guy, you don't need elite speed to be around the football. You just have to be able to think faster and make a more direct decision than your opponent. It's the only time I'm ever going to agree. It's not going to be about Dan Sorensen, though. But he's right in that aspect. Like, if you just, there are certain students of the game that just can see it. They say Mahomes has it. Then people like Montana had it. Like, it's almost like, what is that? The equalizer, where you can almost see the play happening before the ball is snapped. And so you can already process what you're going to do. That's what it seems like Bolton's doing. Because for his speed, a lot of times he shouldn't be. I saw him chase down Henry from the backside. How many people can do that? From around the offensive line and chase down Henry from the back. Like, people just don't. He's not supposed to be able to do that. And I watched him do it. So, sorry. I kind of went on a tangent there, but you get my point.
I thought it was too easy for me to be the Mizzou fan and take the Mizzou guy. So,
this one, I think for me, it's a lot harder. And maybe that's because, I had in my mind players that we should have picked. And so, and then players that I thought would have had a better season than they had so far. So, on my short list, I would put players like Creed and Trey, and even though it was very short flash, Jody, for the offense, and then on defense, I would put Nick on there definitely as well. But I'm really torn here between two other players who were already on this roster. And before I get to that, I'm going to mention, like, in my mind, the perfect linebacker is a mix of Bolton and Gay. Like, you combine the best of their traits. Like, give me that linebacker. Give me 3 of them. I want them on the field at the same time.
We had
All right,
one. His
that's
name was Derek Johnson.
he might still be better than either Hitchens or Neiman. All right. I know
If
there'll be
only
some
we could
people.
talk him out of retirement.
I know there'll be some
No
people in the
stuff.
chat that say both, right? I think there's probably people in the chat right now who would be willing to say that DJ and Barry are better than Neiman and Sorensen both right now. I'm sure there's somebody who will say that. Anyway, the 2 players in my mind are Fenton, who PFF has ranked as their number 1 cornerback, surprising me,
Nah, no, I can't
and
trust PFF.
and Tommy Townsend, who has actually brought his game to the field this year. So
I'm
I'm
not
sorry, is this
surprised
the
by the
huddle?
arm, though.
Who are you?
I'm really Holly.
Hi, Holly. We know you're in the chat.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a hard thing. Like, what Creed has done, and he wasn't the center that I wanted to begin with. And
Wasn't the center I wanted.
I could admit that. And I
He
didn't
was
want
me.
Bolton. I didn't want Bolton in the second round, and I could admit that. And I had no idea who Trey Smith was, and I could admit that. And
Oh,
so,
I knew who Trey Smith was. I've watched that kid.
I think I
so
had him
And I wanted
as a 3rd rounder.
Landon
got him in the
Dickerson, but everybody knows that.
Yes, I do.
the Alabama
I
guy.
actually did want Humphrey. I just didn't think.
Oh.
I thought he'd be gone before we could get to him.
It's hard. If we were doing offensive and defensively, I would say Creed and Nick. I think overall, though, because Creed actually plays every single offensive down and what he means to giving Mahomes a clean pocket, I'm going to have to go with Creed over this, over Nick in this. But I mean, I think it's really close, and I think that some of those kind of factors that are outside of Nick's control are kind of, the only reason that I can say that. But I'm really, like I said, there's 5 or 6 guys I'm really, really pleasantly surprised with. I'm going to go with Creed as my most pleasantly surprised with. And if you got more thoughts on this, we can talk about it.
Can we call Creed the Juggernaut? Have you ever seen him? Like, his face, and he's got no neck, and that, like, he's just even on TV, that's a big guy. Like, I would actually be scared to run up into Creed Humphreys down a dark, not even dark, down a lit alley. You know what I'm saying? Like, Creed Humphreys is a big man. That is a man. I'm just like, every time I see him and they show a picture of his face with him, like, I just see the Juggernaut. Like, he just runs through whatever. Number 1 ranked center in the NFL as a rookie, and he won't even win Rookie of the Year. That's a shame.
Well, since we've basically talked about most of the draft so far, let's go ahead and hit this topic. What are your thoughts on the Veach hate right now?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask if I had some. Let's start with the Mod Father.
I have no hate for the guy. I still trust him. I know he's going to fall in love with players here and there and take them before they should be or even at all, like Speaks. But you can't hit 100%.
Right,
So,
except for maybe this draft.
Yeah, this draft has been, I mean, aside from, well, Bo Peep wasn't drafted, was he?
I think he was a 6th.
2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, maybe last year? 2 years ago?
Possibly. Yeah, I have no hate for the guy. I still trust in what he's doing. It's the matter of playing the wrong people
Yeah, go ahead.
sometimes.
I think he gets a lot of hate for no reason. I mean, look, for those of us who are old enough, and this may be a little before your time there, Keys, we had to live through King Carl Peterson.
I'm
You know
not
what
that.
I'm
I lived
saying?
through that. I lived through that.
And then we had to live through Dorsey. I mean, it's Veach has had more hits than he's had misses. Trey, Sneed, Creed, Bolton. That's just this year, right? Um, well, Sneed was the year before. He did trade for, or he did sign Tyron. He brought in, oh man, now I can't think of his name. Kimba
Bregman?
Fuller. He brought in Fuller, which helped us win the Super Bowl. He brought in Bashad Breeland. Like, I mean, maybe not all drafts, but his draft picks have been better than most. McColl's a good return guy, open field guy. I mean, I think the ones that he misses on, like you said, Speaks. The Hitchens deal might have been a little too expensive. I mean, but he's had more hits than misses. I think the hate is unjustified, in my opinion. The dude went from him and Andy Reid, because some of it has to be Andy too, took a losing franchise, because that's what we were for a few years, made us consistent winners, and then built a Super Bowl contender. I don't know how you can hate that. It's just my opinion.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go back to my college roots here.
Oh,
And
before you do, and managed to sign the best quarterback in the NFL to a team-friendly cap situation deal that nobody else in the league would have thought to do.
10 years. Nobody's been signed for 10 years.
They haven't signed. There hasn't been a 10-year deal since I actually saw it last time.
John
There's only
Gruden.
I think there's only been one player that signed a 10-year deal, and I can't even think of who it was now. There's only been one other one. 10 years, $480 million. I mean, which he's never gonna see. He'll see that over the course of his career, maybe more, but he's not gonna play out that 10 years, because come year 5, when his salary's $50 million, they're just gonna restructure and write him a new contract. Maybe
Well,
10 years, $750 million.
by year 5, 50 million might be league average for a quarterback. We have no idea, how much
This
the
is true.
cap will go up by then. So, yeah. But what I was gonna say was, I'm gonna go back to my college roots here and go back to my college team. And one of the things that the University of Iowa has had to do over the years is have a great strength and conditioning program, because it's in Iowa. You cannot get 5-star recruits to come to Iowa. Why would you do that when you can go to big programs like Alabama or LSU? You can go to warm states like, who's going to leave? Most of them are in warm states to begin with. So who's going to leave Georgia or Florida, or Texas or California to come move to Iowa in the middle of corn country and have cold winters? I say that because people think that Brett Veach, they basically think that Madden is real life, and think that every guy who's available, that Veach should be able to get to sign no matter what. Like, these guys have free will. Getting players to come to Kansas City, which, the weather's not the greatest. The marketing isn't the greatest. Patrick might make it better. But there's all these different factors. Like, not all these guys like barbecue as much as we do, right? And so people have just expected that Brett can go out and, force players to sign with this team as if it's Madden, whether that's OBJ, whether it's Trent Williams. He was still going after Trent. We don't know if he was going after OBJ or not. He was going after Juju. Each situation was different, whatever the case was. And he can't force a guy to sign in Kansas City. So I don't get the hate on that part. And part of what OBJ said was, he was feeling the love from the Rams. Well, in the press conference, when Patrick was asked about OBJ, he said, I leave that to Veach. I haven't talked to him. If you're OBJ, are you going somewhere where I don't know if Stafford reached out to him or not, but I mean, if you're Patrick, if you want him here, you got to reach out to him. Players were reaching out to other players when they wanted them here. So
Yeah, but you have to be careful about that because Aaron Rodgers reaches out to people and people still don't go to play in Green Bay. You know what I'm saying? Green Bay is just like Kansas City, middle of the country, small market, crappy weather. And who wouldn't want to play? Look, I love Patrick. Who wouldn't want to play with Aaron? Surefire Hall of Famer who, I always say Patrick is Aaron 2.0, but Patrick is Aaron before Aaron figured out that his accuracy is second to none. You know what I'm saying? When Patrick finds that accuracy, he's going to be dangerous. But people don't want to play in them cold weathers, not to mention the tax rates. You know what I'm saying? OBJ's a diva anyway. I'd have much rather seen Deshaun here. And the problem is they actually made a play for Deshaun, and he chose the Raiders. You're welcome, Deshaun.
and we are so thankful for it.
We are.
Yeah, and I mean that goes to the point. Green Bay was supposedly the front runners, right? But it kind of comes back to that. And again, you brought up tax rate, but nobody has a higher tax rate than like California and New York. So
Don't I know it about New York?
But the cold weather, it is a factor. There are players who, come on. If each of us had millions of dollars and we had the ability to, not have to worry about paying, what we were paying in taxes to afford $1 million mansions, are you moving to Kansas? Are you staying in Kansas City area, or you hitting up somewhere warmer like someplace in Florida or California? Especially
I'm
if you're getting
staying.
paid to
I'm
play there.
staying. I'm staying in Kansas City. You know why? Because nobody's going to bother me there. Everybody wants to go to the warm weather. I'll stay where it's cold because the chances of you coming to visit me are less and less than if I was in Florida or California. You're not going to come see me. And OBJ, he doesn't care about winning. How do I know this? The Packers offered him the vet minimum, which I believe is somewhere around $3 million. He didn't want to play for the vet men. So it's not about winning for you, it's about money still. And by the time you figure out it's about winning, you're the next Le'Veon Bell. And that's Le'Veon Bell, how chasing the money worked out for him. He got all of it. $30 million from the Jets, however many millions from Pittsburgh, and now he's cut from the Ravens. So you force your way out of Pittsburgh, force your way out of New York, get to Kansas City, don't want to play ball. Now you hate Andy. You get to John Harbaugh, who is just as much of a player's coach as Andy is, and you still manage to get cut. Bro. That's
Harbaugh was
OBJ's career.
one of Reed's guys too, so I'm a little surprised he took him after all that.
Right.
Well, they were desperate.
That's
there's
very
always
true.
there's always the off chance that maybe Harbaugh signed him so he'd get injured like the other running backs. But yeah, I think that part, there's no merit to that argument, the free agent argument. I think it's hard to argue with the draft aspect. Yeah, you can point out the Breland Speaks of the world, but when you're doing it in the same breath that you're praising Creed, you're praising Bolton, you're praising Trey, and to some extent Gray. people were praising Fortson before he got injured. We're praising Snead. We're praising Dana. We're praising Wharton. We're praising all of these guys. Well, most of us are praising most of them. And so, even then, I mean, you don't hit on every pick. And as far as the strategy of trading first rounds or second round picks for players, I think it's one philosophical way to go about it. It wouldn't necessarily be mine. But if your choice is to take the best player available at your position of need, or to try to trade for someone who actually is a better fit for your offense, or you project to be a better player or a better fit for your offense, then I think you have to take that trade. If you're going for, if you're going to go for player, position of need, why not trade for a guy and hand pick the guy, as opposed to be stuck with whoever's there at 31 or 32, and now you have a player that you don't really think is going to fit, or you have on your board being a third round grade. So philosophically, I can understand it. I don't think it's worked out as well, but maybe we'll see that swing the other way. I don't know, but I certainly can't hate him for it. It would be easier for me to hate him if I thought that he was making all these decisions without Andy and Spag's input, but I don't think that's the case at all. So, any last thoughts on this topic?
I'm good. What's next?
All right. Well, let's stay with the young guys, and let's talk about CEH. Let's talk about one of his picks. So, CEH, is he just misused? Is he a bust? Is it neither of those things, or is it both, or something else? You want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right, I can go first. Part of what has gotten me thinking about this is, clearly the highlights of CEH in college, the breakdowns of CEH in college, the things that he was great at, aren't the things that we've seen the Chiefs utilize him in. We've expected, and even coming into this season, there was even more hype that even though we didn't see him in the passing game last year like we expected to, since that's what was one of his big things in college, right? And that's how you justify taking a running back in the first round. And we didn't see that. And this year they kind of hyped it up. Greg Lewis, became his running back coach. So we kind of expected to see way more out of him in the passing game. And we've started to see it out of Darrell now with him gone. But we really haven't seen him utilized to the best of his abilities the way he was in college. And I pointed out, I think a few weeks ago, that Seth Kaiser pointed out, as soon as CEH got injured, he pointed out, he tweeted something like, just wait for it. The Chiefs are going to go to more power gap with CEH out, and the running backs are going to do better, and people are going to trash CEH, when that same thing would have been better for him as well. And so I think those two things would lead me towards saying misused. But at the same time, there was a metric that came out, I think a couple weeks ago, and I saw this again come back up on Twitter in an argument the other day about CEH. Is he being misused? What's the deal? And the metric shows offensive line run blocking grades, and it shows the expected over average, the expected yards over average. And basically, CEH is right at his expected yards over average. Like, he's not getting any more than what what the numbers show that he's expected to get, which kind of signals that you're maybe not a great running back. Now, how much of that is the way he's been used or not? I think the way that the formula is made up is it takes into account all these different things, and so really, it should be, he's not making people miss. He's not really breaking tackles. He's not really getting extra yards. Now, we've seen some plays where we know that's not the case, right? I can remember a play off the top of my head where I swear he got like 4 or 5 more yards just because he had his back to the defender and he was pushing off on his legs and fighting for those extra yards. But at the same time, by expected yards over average, he's gaining nothing extra on top of it. And Darrell, at least the last time they did the calculations for this, was getting 1 yard under what was expected. So Darrell was actually not even getting what he was expected to get based off of the offensive line run blocking for him and the positioning of the defense. I haven't seen the numbers for Gore yet, but at least for Darrell, it wasn't looking good before the Raiders game, and you at least have to acknowledge it when you're talking about CEH, in my opinion.
Well, okay. I think he's been massively underused or underutilized in the pass game. What were you going to say, Gooch?
No, go ahead. I'll end this category.
He's going to let it simmer.
Okay. Well, yeah, he's been massively underutilized in the pass game. And I've seen Mahomes just plain not throwing the ball. He's sitting there wide open right in front of him, and I don't know if he's afraid to throw that low or what the deal is there. Somebody said he didn't like the fact that he was so short, so he'd pass up throwing it to him. I don't remember who said that. But yeah, the whole first round selection deal, I don't think any of us were expecting a running back there or cared to get a running back there with the other players that were out there, but I think Mahomes even asked for him, so Beach pulled the trigger.
Right, which makes it a little weird that, his height, right, when you want for him. And I don't think it's necessarily that he asked for him. He just when Beach asked him, solicited his opinion, he gave it to him. But you bring up an interesting point, and don't forget your point, Gooch, but I don't know if you listened to Patrick talking about Darrell's catch, the touchdown catch where he mossed Abrams. And Patrick said something to the extent of, Darrell told me that he could go up and catch, and I didn't believe him. Well, now I'm starting to believe him, when Darrell told him that, he's a receiving running back. That's what it was. Darrell told him, hey, I'm a receiving running back. And he said, I didn't believe him before that catch, but now I'm starting to believe him. So maybe there's something there where Patrick, where there's something where maybe he's the reason why we haven't seen running backs in the passing game really before this last week or so, as much as we have been.
That's basically where I was going, yeah. As far as actually running the ball, yeah, I don't think he's done as well as he should have most of the time. I like his jump cut quite a bit, but I like Gore's vision and speed, and I would like to see more of him. But he's still been underutilized. CEH has.
All right, here comes Gooch.
The answer is none of the above. The answer is the jury is still out. First, I'm going to clarify that whole story. Veach texted Patrick and asked Patrick if he had the choice, who would they draft? And Patrick said Clyde. That's one. So they pulled for that. Two, Andy Reid's offense, and we've said it, is notoriously hard on wide receivers, right? Why isn't it hard on running backs? Every single person in the NFL says Andy's screen game is so intricate. Why would it not be hard for a running back or a brand new, completely retooled offensive line to not be able to block for it, or the fact that maybe Clyde is still thinking too much because Andy's offense is too intricate and he's supposed to be looking for certain things before he hits holes, because something tells me that if his offense is that hard on wide receivers whose primary job is to catch the ball, it has to be doubly hard for running backs who not only have to run with it, but also be prepared to catch it and start looking for certain things. On top of the fact that, once again, did anybody notice that Andy didn't run the screens at the end of last year or at the beginning of this year? And we really didn't start getting into them until the last 5 quarters, 6 quarters. Like, I think the reason why we saw a lot out of Daryl is because Daryl's done the screen game. He's been in this system for 5 years. He knows it. So when Andy says, all right, the offensive line has got it, let's run it, Daryl doesn't have to think about it. He knows what he's supposed to do, where he's supposed to go, when he's supposed to turn his head. I think a lot of people are hard on CEH because he's not Kareem Hunt, and he never will be. Kareem Hunt isn't Kareem Hunt right now, even though he is still the greatest kicker in the National Football League.
That's wrong.
Anyway, I think they're expecting too much. CEH isn't Jamal Charles. He's not Kareem Hunt. He's just CEH. I mean, if you really want to be honest, he's Harvey Williams. He can find the hole once he understands the offense. He's a decent receiving back out of the backfield. All he's got to do is get him in. All you got to do is get him in open space. Does he have third level speed? No, but he can make linemen and linebackers miss. You just got to give him in space. Like, right. Harvey's long neck, yeah. I just think that you got to give him time. I think it doesn't do him any justice that he seems to get hurt just as he's starting to get going. Like, just when you think he's finding his footing, he's getting injured and he's out a few games. But that doesn't mean Daryl needs to be in. Daryl is not. I could see Gore and CEH, but I don't see Daryl. Daryl's not. If Daryl was the answer at running back, guys, we wouldn't have had Damian. We wouldn't have needed him. We would have let him walk when his contract was up. We signed him for another year. We won a Super Bowl. Daryl is in my eyes, and a lot of people are going to hate this, but it's the perfect example when you think about it. Daryl is a taller Mike Allstott. Power back that if he gets the hole just right, you're going to have a hard time taking him down, and he's going to put some extra yards on you. But he's not a feature back. So I think the answer is jury is still out. I don't think you can firmly make a decision until Clyde has. I mean, does he even have 16 games under his belt? I mean, we're almost this is the second season. He doesn't even have a whole season worth of games yet. So he needs time before we start sticking that buster
Right.
or boom label on him.
I like your answer and your points.
I think that some fans might use that kind of as a counterpoint that Clyde's looking somewhat fragile with his ankles. And so there is some concern, especially with his size, and especially with as much as he uses those ankles to cut back and forth and to set up defenders, of his longevity. I'd also throw in there that I think that there's a lot of it is, yeah, there's the people who want Kareem Hunt back, but then there's also the people who see Jonathan Taylor, who the Chiefs could have had instead of Clyde, and seeing what he's doing right now. And it's a totally different discussion. And I think in some ways kind of comes back, you know, kind of like the McColl, discussion. We could have had this guy over this guy. And then you start comparing players without thinking about the schemes that they're in and what they're asked to do, kind of to your point with CEH, right? If if CEH is asked to do all of this stuff, if you're right, and CEH is asked to do all this stuff in the offense, and again, as you pointed out with the receivers, well, McColl's only in his third year, and so can we really expect a lot out of him as well, if that's the case? And then, fans can talk about, well, we could have had DK. You did the show last week, so we don't need to, rehash all of this. But the difference between the two players is what? One season? McColl's played one more season. And so,
No,
I think that.
no, same draft. DK was the same draft.
No, I mean, it's CEH. He's played one more season than CEH. Yeah. So, that it's kind of, if the receiving position is so notoriously hard, right? And McColl's only been on the team 1 year longer than CEH. If the jury's still out on CEH, is it not still out on McColl?
Oh, are you throwing it back at me? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me start with for those that think CEH is too fragile. The guy is playing a sport where you are paid to play, show up. The greatest ability is availability, I believe the line is. Now, we as mere mortals, and I'm just talking to the guys here, how many times have we hurt ourselves and continue to walk on it or work on it or whatever, and then that turns into something else being hurt because we're overcompensating for the initial injury? I don't think CEH was fully healthy from the hip, but he wanted to come back, which, of course, when he's running, he's trying to put, and we've all done it, you mentally tell yourself you can do it, and then as soon as you're done, you're back to compensating for that initial injury, which makes either one area a little too strong and the other area too weak. So, and he's being paid like if they really thought he was fragile, you know what kind of label, when you stick that label on somebody, what that is for a man's career in a sport like football. So you're going to show back up. I guarantee you he wasn't 100%. And two, the reason why I think, and I'm going to use friend of the show, Seth Kaiser's own words with this, is McColl's main job is to run routes and catch the ball. He doesn't work out with his teams or his quarterback in the offseason. He doesn't practice running his routes. He doesn't work on the jugs machine on his hands, obviously. And that's his one job, is to catch the ball. And there's been no uptick in that department. And according to Seth Kaiser, there's really only been 3 receivers who have broke out after year 3. Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison. And you wouldn't confuse none of those with McCole Hardman.
You guys have heard it here first. McColl is the next Rice, Moss, or Harrison.
No, you would not confuse those guys with McCole Hardman. And as a running back, he has to worry about his blocking assignment. He has to worry about his route assignment. Even if he was going out on a route, he has to worry that if they send a blitzer, if he's got a chip before he goes out on his route. Then if Patrick audibles, he has to go from thinking about running his route to which hole he has to hit. I mean, these are all things that the running back, if you ever watched them, and a lot of people don't, but their eyes are scanning the field more than quarterbacks are. And the quarterback is really the director of the offense. But the running back has to think about basically the same things. The only difference is he's not throwing the ball. All the receiver has to do is take his 7-step out, slant, curl, hook, fade, 9-knot seams. I mean, that's it. Um, oh my God, McCole Hardman is Marvin Harrison. Good grief, keys. I'm a joking. Um, and that's why I think there should be more patience with Clyde. And to, again, and I'm going to bounce this to your Jonathan Taylor comment. Jonathan Taylor is in an offense that is unlike Andy Reid's. And his job is to take the handoff 25 times, hit the line, run the ball. In an offense like Andy's, it is throw first, pass second. And so I think there's more on Clyde's plate, like I said, with blocking and chipping and route running, as well as running the ball. And I mean, I just think it's a whole lot more. And people only see, they can't see the forest for the trees. Isn't that the line? Like, Jonathan Taylor looks great in that offense, but what would he be in ours? You know what I'm saying? The one thing I can give Reed credit for, and I'm going to give McCole a little credit here too, he's a converted wide receiver, but he's not dumb. Everybody that runs in Reed's offense, if you go check their Wonderlic score or their GPAs and calls, these are all smart dudes. Like this would be running Andy Reid's offense would be studying thermonuclear engineering, where everybody else is studying calculus, because his offense evolves. I think Patrick even said it. We have one play that has 4 plays off of that one play, and then another play that has 4 or 5 variations off that one play. You know what I'm saying? This is when you enter Andy Reid's classroom. That's top level stuff. And I just think it's harder on backs, and you should give CEH more time. Now, McCole, look, buddy. I mean, you're the next Dante Hall. That's not bad. It's just not great.
Well, I
Much
think
respect.
he's put in more solid work this year myself. He's got a 9-catch game this year. I don't think he's done that until this year. I think
Talking
he's
about
been more
McCole?
solid. Yeah. Nicole has been more solid this year than he has
I
been.
think
I've
I'm
seen
just
some
I think I'm
growth.
just more of a
I would like
I
to
just
see
think I'm
more
more of a
growth.
Pringle fan.
Oh, I am too. I do like Pringle a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't
So
mean to cut you off, Double A.
You're good, man.
so if you're right in what you've said about the difficulty for a running back to pick up this offense, then you would probably take a little heat off of Veach for taking CEH at the end of the first round, because you get that 5th-year option. So you now have 5 years of him in the system, which is a benefit. So
I would take the heat off of him for that anyway, because every single GM and coach after the Chiefs picked him said they were going to pick him. So he wasn't going to be there by the time we picked in the 2nd round or 3rd round, because every other coach said that's our guy. Like, had Veach not taken him, he wouldn't have made it past the first pick of the 2nd round. Like, everybody was like, we were looking at him. So obviously he sees something that everybody else saw. You can't, I mean, it's so, I'm going to hate this, but it's so like us to be spoiled with success after we haven't had any in a long time. And then to try and dissect that and not look at the fact that right after that draft, Sean Payton, Sean McVay, the guys in Cleveland all said the same thing. We were going to pick him. That was our guy. No one expected the Chiefs to pick him at the end of the 1st round. So they were all set on drafting him in case the other guys didn't draft him in the 2nd. I don't do this for a living, and I have to assume that those guys are smarter at this than me. So if those brilliant minds were going to pick him, I think it was right to get the 5th year and see what you got. Worst come to worst, what it cost you? A rookie contract? No major cap hits? Do it again. the running back room really is kind of interchangeable. I mean, you have your very few backs anymore who are stalwart backs. What, King Henry? End of list?
It's not far off. Everybody else gets hurt. And he did.
Right.
Hand the guy the ball 30 or more times a game. It's a matter of time.
Right. Yeah, I think though if CEH, if fans saw CEH
Hello, Newman.
utilized more like Kamara or McCaffrey, that they'd probably feel that there'd be a group of fans that feel better about it. And I'm sure there'd still be some fans that argue about how the offense looked with Kareem Hunt, how Andy utilized him. We saw him in this offense and how he fit. And that was with an offensive line that isn't quite as good as the one. Like if you look at the rankings for offensive pass blocking and run blocking, like it is like the Cowboys and the Browns and us, and we're like sandwiched between those two teams. Like if you look at the grades, and so
The
you know,
problem is with that argument is that nobody said Kareem Hunt was a receiving back. He can catch passes, but Kareem Hunt was a running back. The reason we drafted Clyde was because he's like Daryl said, which one he brought, he's a receiving running back. The whole point we drafted him was to add another dimension to. Nobody said anything about his running. We selected Clyde because we believe that he can add another dimension to our passing game.
And then we don't pass to him.
Right, but I still think
I
that
think
all
that's
falls.
kind of the
I still think that all falls into the fact that it's the screens. I think the passing game, as hard as it is for receivers, is just as hard for running backs who have to receive out of the backfield. I think Andy is intricate with it and how he wants his linemen to react and everything like that. And I think it's just hard to pick up. Why wouldn't it be? Hey, kitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think at the same time though, that's not necessarily what fans were envisioning when they were envisioning CEH coming in as a receiving running back.
Yeah, they were
They were
envisioning Super Bowls around the tree and stuff like that. I
they
get it.
were they were envisioning passes beyond the line of scrimmage, like the ones he was receiving in college, and looking ridiculous. And I think if anyone's to blame for this, it's Brett Coleman out there who made his CEH highlight video, broke him down pre-draft, and really showed how he was utilized at LSU. And then after the Chiefs drafted him, I think Brett Coleman made another video talking about how perfect he was going to be in our offense. I could be wrong on that, but I think that that's part of the part of the fan angst is we just haven't seen him. Not even, I don't think fans even really care about the screen game with CEH. I think it's more, those routes that he was running at LSU, and he was supposedly great at running at LSU, that we haven't seen him run in our offense that would be helpful for our offense. All right, well, we'll move on, and we're going to do our last segment here. We're running out of time. We got to hit it. We will beat the Cowboys if. We'll beat the Cowboys if. I'll already get it out there for Gooch. We'll beat the Cowboys if Dak gets COVID. We'll beat the Cowboys if their plane doesn't land. We'll beat the Cowboys if Mike McCartney is Mike McCartney or McCarthy. Which ones am I missing?
We will beat the Cowboys if they stop the run and keep play action off the table. And bracket.
nailed every single one.
And bracket CD Lamb.
We will beat the Cowboys if Dak remembers that he's Dak Prescott and not Patrick Mahomes. I think that's the only one you forgot.
Okay. Hey, and that key worked last week. Didn't you say the same thing about if Derek Carr remembers he's Derek Carr, which he did.
I think he's already been jinxed because Jerry is already talking about, well, if we go to Missouri and we win, that'll be a big feather in the cap for us. That's what Jerry said on radio today. So Jerry's already jinxed him. On top of that, I don't know if you guys watch First Thing First. I'm gonna use Chris Broussard's little take too. Nick Wright put the Cowboys on top of the tiers, and every single week he's put somebody else at number one. They've lost, so I'm hoping that jinx go ahead and continues on. I think, in all reality, in all seriousness, I think if Andy and Patrick continue to do what they did against the Raiders, there's no way we lose this game. Because I believe the stats were almost 300 yards after catch because we were throwing to running backs and tight ends and stuff like that. And I don't care who you are, you're going to eventually get tired of chasing Kelsey and Hill, and especially if they're just going to short pass them and then give them all that room to run. On top of the fact that they don't have DeMarcus Lawrence, one of their other superb linemen is going to be out for this game. And
Randy Gregory.
Yep. And I think Tyreek Hill runs Mr. Diggs. I think he runs him into exhaustion. That's what I think happens. Chiefs win.
So.
I'm going to even throw a score out there. What we do, 41-14 this week? Let's see. I think Chiefs win. Give a Butker field goal just for Holly. 38-28.
Okay.
Let's say 34-31 Chiefs.
Well, I haven't put these on yet, so might as well.
Oh, the HGs have made an appearance.
So I believe this is a game, at least for me, I don't remember for you, Gooch, but I think this is a game that we both had originally picked at the beginning of the season for the Chiefs to lose. Am I wrong on that?
Really?
I know that I'm sure that I did. We had about 3 or 4 games.
I said they'd win this one. I think I had them losing to Baltimore, Tennessee, Buffalo, and then the Chargers at the end of the year. No.
Washington.
Tennessee, Baltimore, Washington, and then the Chargers at the end of the year.
Yeah, well, I think this is the game that I originally had them losing. And certainly at the beginning of the season, the way things were going for the two teams, it looked that way. I do think that Gregory and Lawrence being out helps, especially with our offensive line. And I think in one way, with Diggs being as all or nothing as he is, having had Marcus Peters on our team, helps some because we were kind of used to that. And the first time we played against Marcus Peters, we kind of knew how to play him. And so I think maybe that helps, to neutralize Diggs somewhat. I think having came off a game with no offensive turnovers, we had the special teams turnover, but no offensive turnovers helps with things. It'll be interesting to see how, Dallas plays this game. Somebody had mentioned that their defensive coordinator is Dan Quinn, who was the head coach of the Falcons, and supposedly he plays a cover 3 as well, like the Raiders do. And we'll see if they make the same mistake the Raiders did, or if they do what everyone else has done and played cover 2. Now, Patrick in his press conference today said that he'd heard people making this argument, and he said that basically what the Raiders were still doing, rolling in their coverages, it essentially made it the same as what everyone else was doing. Offensively, if things stay the way that they looked in the Raiders game, I have a tendency to agree that our offense is going to put up some points. I think the kind of scary thing is on the defensive side, and I don't mean this to be a slight against our defense, But the Dallas offensive line is absolutely no joke. And if our defensive line is able to generate pass rush against this offensive line, then I will be completely sold on their ability to generate pass rush. Just because Dallas's offensive line is that great. You know, Dak, I don't think that he's in the Mahomes tier of quarterbacks, but he's also not even like below, I want to say below above average. I don't think he's in a tier below above average. And so, and they have 3 receivers who get targeted a lot and they catch the ball a lot. And Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and I'm going to forget the last one, the third one here.
Roll Tide.
There's a third one out there. I don't remember who it is off the top of my
Gallup?
head now. It might have been Gallup. I know he's not playing though, right? He's injured.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think he's done for the year.
And so, and then Schultz, their tight end, is pretty good too. I know some of these guys because I have some of them in my fantasy, on my fantasy team. So, you know, I'm familiar with what they can do offensively. So that offense looks pretty stacked. So, you know, overall, I said the defensive line, but really the defense as a whole, how they can come out of this game is going to tell me a lot about them because I'm not sure offensively there is a greater challenge the rest of the season. I don't know about defensively, you know, because we saw the Broncos, you know, put that beating on the Cowboys. But offensively, you know, this is how they do against Dallas's offense is going to tell me a lot about our defense. So, you know, as Aaron said, you know, you got to stop Zeke. You got to be able to stop Tony Pollard. And you got to be able to find a way to stop CeeDee Lamb, Cooper, and Schultz. I'm not sure that we can get the pressure there. If we can get the pressure there, it's a different story. I certainly don't want to see Sorensen and Neiman on the field unless they're preoccupying those offensive linemen, again, on a blitz. Hey, listen, as good as that offensive line is, if they are actually picking up Neiman and Sorensen on a blitz and allowing somebody else to go free, I'll be ecstatic. I don't know that that'll be the case, but I'll be ecstatic. Otherwise, I don't want to see him on the field at all. I do want to see Jones inside so he can get, to the best of his ability, get the quick interior pressure, because I'm not sure going up against these offensive tackles, he's getting the edge pressure regardless. So I'm going to see him get that interior pressure, try to flush Dak outside of the pocket. You know, I think Spags has got to be creative in bringing his blitz from one direction and making sure that he can push Dak and push Dak's eyes where he wants Dak's eyes, and then flood where he wants Dak's eyes with a lot of defensive players in coverage. If he can do that, if he can get Dak to go to one side or his eyes to go to one side and then make him make a mistake in coverage, I think it's going to be a lot easier for our defense. I think just having Bolton out there is going to help us against Zeke himself. But I think if Spags can do that with the pressure, then I think it's going to give us a chance defensively. Of course, if the offense comes out and looks the way they did in the Raiders game, that's going to help the defense out on its own. And so, you know, I think that those are my keys.
You kicked my butt pretty good last week with CeeDee Lamb, so he's really the only one that scares me out of the receivers.
Yeah, and if I lose this week, I'll be more than happy if it means the Chiefs have won. So
I'm with you.
You know, Gooch, when I edit this video, I can blur your mouth so they can't see what you're saying.
Roll Tide. Hopefully they can read that though, and not think it's something else.
Yeah. Roll Tide is what I was saying. Roll Tide.
All right. Well, do we have any last thoughts here before Gooch sends us off?
I've got nothing.
All right, Gooch.
Subscribe to RGR. Yeah, before we bounce, I didn't see anything on this, so I wanted to say send my well wishes to Dr. Duvernay. Was it Laurent Duvernay Tardif? You don't throw around the word hero very often, but for somebody to be making millions of dollars playing a sport, to opt out of that cash, to go back to his homeland, to take care of people during a global pandemic, then to sit out the time he had to sit out and come back to the city that he was signed to and try to help out here as well as playing football. I don't think he got the send-off that he deserved. And so since I didn't see it, I'm just going to say we appreciate you, Doctor. If you didn't win the Man of the Year award, you should have. What a great ambassador you were for not only NFL, Kansas City Chiefs, but as humans as a whole. So I just wanted to send my respects. It's a big man. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people wouldn't have done what you did for that selfless act. Surely, I don't know if it's karma, whatever your belief system is, we're not going to get into that, but I hopefully smiles down on you and great things are in your future. With that being said, make sure we appreciate anybody that watches this content, whether religiously or in passing. Check out the RGR store. Ryan does live streams on Monday where you'll find the three of us. The Mod Father, definitely, we appreciate him being on this episode. We're going to do that again. Check out the RGR store where you can get merchandise. I think there's a code, which is there, Aaron, for 20% off for that? Or some kind of discount?
For the store?
Yeah.
There should be, I don't know if it's 20%, but something like 10 or 15.
Yep. So check that out. Chief in the North live stream. Me and Keys on Friday. Hopefully me, Keys, and the Mod Father here on Friday. If you're not a member, become a member because we do picks on the games. Join us in the Discord if you're a member. Me, Keys is in there a lot. The Mod Father's in there too. A bunch of us, I think we're 100 deep right now with people in the Discord. Other than that, we appreciate you stopping by. We hope to see you in the next one.
Yep. And as always, you can catch Gooch is on Twitter now, so you can catch him there. I'm on Twitter as well. And Aaron's isn't as easy to remember, but Aaron's on Twitter as well. You can follow Aaron and Gooch and myself on there. And,
when I get on Twitter, it's a good time, y'all. It's a good time.
So I'll go ahead and tell you guys peace out, and we're going to end this with a tribute to the Man of the Hour. I'm going to put these back on.
Man of the Hour.
The Man of the Hour. Congrats, Dan Sorensen, for making your first clutch play of 2021. I said before, I defended Dan when he made his clutch plays last year, the year before, the year before. He hadn't made one this year that I considered clutch. So congrats to Dan Sorensen for making his clutch play this year. All right. Congrats, Dan. We salute you. Now, don't let it be the last one you make this season. Now, with that said, we're going to let Dan send us on out of here.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.